Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Roderico, and right alongside each and every week, of course, is none other than Legends Tour player and LPGA professional Cindy Miller, and we are the hosts of the Women of Golf Show. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning, Ted. I'm back.
That's right. Welcome back, Cindy. We're always glad to have you right alongside here. It always makes the show that much more fun, and when you're away, and it gets a little lonely here on the network, but I appreciate always having you here alongside. Of course, we got a great show for you this morning. Going to have a little bit program change. We were going to have the winner of this past weekend's Symetra Tour event, the Prasco Charity Championship. But unfortunately, she got kind of caught up in some travel and isn't going to make it with us this morning. But we're very grateful to have the Symetra Tour's media and public relations official, Zach Sapanek, is going to fill in for her, and we've got some great questions lined up for him. And then a little bit later on, we're going to be joined by the founder and president of Tina Toombs Golf out in Arizona. Tina Toombs herself is going to be joining us. We're excited to have her as well on the show. But let me just remind everybody, of course, we are live every Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the blogtalkradio.com network. And, of course, best way to find us is to go to blogtalkradio.com, and up in the search feed just type Women of Golf, and we're there live front and center every Tuesday from 9 to 10. Also, for some reason, if you can't join us live, just scroll down on the page and you'll find the on-demand section. Of course, that's where all of the previously aired shows, including today's, will be there a little bit later on, and you can listen to the recorded version if you can't join us live. But we're always grateful that you're tuning in, and we appreciate the vast growing audience each and every week from literally all around the globe. So thank you for all of your continued support. Also, if you want to reach out to either Cindy or I, the best way to do so is to contact us through our emails. We're always happy to hear from you. Cindy's email is cindy@cindymillergolf.com. Cindy@cindymillergolf.com, and mine is ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. My apologies for that, Cindy. But also, if you want to call into the show, we'd always love to hear from you. You're welcome to call it. Number is area code 347-945-5855. As I mentioned, we were going to be joined this morning by Muni, who was the winner of the Symetra Tour's inaugural Prasco Charity Championship that was held out at TPC Rivers Bend. But as I said, she's not going to be able to join us, as it turns out, this morning due to some travel conflicts. But our good friend, again, Symetra Tour's media and public relations official, Zach Sapanek, has joined us. Good morning, Zach.
Good morning, Ted, Cindy. Thanks for having me on today.
Thank you for being
here. Well, we appreciate it. So let's start with the obvious. This past weekend, you guys had a great event at one of the TPC. Tell us a little bit about the event, and then inevitably, of course, how it finished up.
Sure thing, yeah. We had a great inaugural event at TPC Rivers Bend in Maineville, Ohio, the Prasco Charity Championship. It was the first LPGA Tour family event contested at a course owned and operated by the PGA Tour, so a little bit of history was made this weekend, and Muni from Chengdu, China. She lives out in L.A. now, but she kept a wire-to-wire victory on Sunday with a bogey-free 5-under par final round. So 15-under par overall performance landed her first professional title. She spent 2 semesters at the University of Southern California before turning pro in December, so she's had quite a transition. When she turned pro, she was only 19 years old now, so she's had quite the transition from amateur to professional life, and kind of a culmination of all her hard work this year. She talked to me a lot about how the transition has been maybe a little more challenging than she had originally thought, and she's definitely put in the work, obviously, to get to where she wants to, especially with a 15 under par overall performance. Some numbers that really stood out with her performance. She hit 39 of 42 fairways over the 3 rounds, averaged 28 putts per round, and then hit 45 of 54 greens in regulation. And if you throw everything else into it, she basically had almost a near flawless performance from the standpoint of bogeys, birdies, and pars. She only had 1 double bogey in the whole tournament, and then that was combined with 13 birdies and 2 eagles. So she was on her A game, to say the least, and it showed by winning the tournament by 4 strokes.
Wow. Cindy, that's a dream student there to work with, isn't it?
Yeah, almost. Again, I just wrote an article for the LPGA Women's Network about consistency, and basically the definition is boring. Same thing over and over again, which clearly that's what she was doing, which is what the goal is for all of us. So, wow, that's just awesome. How long does she drive it? Because all these girls we're talking to fly at like 250.
Yeah, her. I want to say her number was right around the 250 mark. I want to say 257. She's if you look at her in person, she's tiny little thing, and she just bombs the ball, and you would never expect it from her. But the thing goes a mile. Yeah, her driving distance over the rounds was 242.5 in round 1, 257.5 in round 2, and 272.5 in round 3.
Oh my God!
Wow, I know. I know, Cindy. I don't know what's going on with some of these young players. Yeah. So let me ask you, Zach. I know the last several weeks that we've had the players on, we've seen them inching up the Volvic race, if you will. This puts her now at number 13, so she's moving up. Tell us a little bit about the race for the card, obviously how that works, and what they're really trying to strive for in that competition.
Yeah, sure thing. So Muni went from number 47 to number 13 with her performance. She's just over the 24K mark over 10 events played. So she's steadily climbing, obviously finding her game. But the Volvic race for the card, the top 10 players on the money list at the end of the season on the Symetra Tour will graduate onto the LPGA Tour with full-time membership for the 2019 season. That's been happening every year now since, early 2000s. So, obviously what makes the Symetra Tour unique is that fact, the official qualifying tour of the LPGA. And, you have girls like right now, you have Jenny Hagelin at number 1 in the Volvic race for the card from Karlstad, Sweden.
Right.
Previously played on the LET. You talked to her last month. Previously played on the LET, one of many European players that have come over and tried their hand at getting there. Another example is a youngster at number 8, Pajari and Anna Rukarn. She's from Thailand, but she's come over and made an instant impact in the game at a young age. So you have that influx of talent from overseas that we've always talked about, and the Volvic race really gives the girls that opportunity to strive for the next stage. And in addition, you have Q Series coming up at the end of this year, which is the new LPGA format for qualifying school, and numbers 11 through 30 on the Volvic race automatically earn a bye into the Q Series. So they won't have to go to Q1, qualifying school stage 1. They won't have to go to Q2 state qualifying school stage 2, they'll bypass right to Q Series, which will be a 2-week cumulative tournament down at Pinehurst Resort. So even if you're not in that top 10, obviously you strive for that top 10, and that's the main goal of every girl on the Symetra Tour. But 11 through 30 gives you a pretty good opportunity because the amount of full-time LPGA cards that are going to be handed out there is going to be quite a bit larger amount than in years. So it's not a bad spot to be in still, but obviously top 10 is the goal.
Wow.
Sure. And I've noticed here as well, Zach, that there is a rather large contingency, if you will, of international players. I mean, we had a couple from Sweden on, just as you said, a few weeks back, and then here back-to-back. Last week, of course, we had Reijin from China as well, and then obviously, unfortunately, we're not going to have her, but Muni is the winner this week. So you're getting quite an international flavor. Do you know what the percentage is of international players now on the compared to U.S. On the Symetra Tour, roughly?
I don't know the percentage, but I know that I want to say our Symetra Tour membership is around 488 players, and they're represented by, I want to say, 46 countries total. So
wow.
The amount of players that are coming, 488 players from 46 countries. The United States has 233 of those players in membership, but you have Canada has 21 players, England has 12,
right.
Mexico has 12, South Korea 14, Sweden 25, Thailand 13. So those are the numbers that kind of pop out in the double-digit form. But Australia with 8, Germany with 9, Japan with 8. So you have plenty of places. Spain with 8. Obviously, a large contingent still from the United States, just because it is the United States Tour. But those numbers are growing, and when I threw that number out to some of our staff members at the beginning of the year, their jaws hit the floor. 46 countries representing a tour. That if that doesn't describe a global tour unlike any other, I don't know what does.
Yeah, that's very impressive. And I know, too, from some of the players, that we've talked to, that especially some of the countries particularly that maybe don't have as big of a number at this point of players that have qualified, it's creating a big impact back home because it's drawing golf back in their regions that maybe golf was not really in the forefront, but now they're taking interest because they're seeing their fellow country men, if you will, or women in this case, playing in a sport that traditionally maybe might not have been there. So obviously that's having a very positive impact in their local areas as well, correct?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think that's something that's unique, is you have these girls who are winning tournaments, and back home they might not have had, especially in the Asian regions, where there's some girls who I know that I've talked to where, golf's a sport that it's almost like a lost island where it hasn't been discovered for hundreds of thousands of years, and it's just now being picked up. And I think that's special, is that these girls, especially from an LPGA standpoint, is these girls are having an impact in not only the communities they travel to, but in their communities back at home, where they're showcasing their skills on a national stage and they're getting recognition. But in turn, people are joining the game and finding ways to get involved because of them.
Right, exactly. And that's what I'm saying is they're obviously creating a very positive impact back home by exposing their regions to a sport that maybe they normally didn't get a lot of exposure before in the past. So I think that's fantastic. Cindy, I know you probably have a question or two for Zach.
What is the best thing you do in your job?
Oh, the best thing I do in my job? Wake up every morning and go to a golf course.
Do you play golf?
I dabble. I don't pretend to be a scratch golfer or anything like that. But I used to work at a country club back home in Grand Rapids, Michigan for about 8 years, and so I got plenty of golf experience with that. You do the old finish the carts at night, and it's still light, and you go out for an hour until it's pitch black and play all the time. So I have plenty of those experiences. One shot of 77 to my name, I will say that. But other than that,
wow.
Yeah, the golf game.
Wow.
I'm not at that point anymore, but I enjoy covering it a little more than playing it now.
Good.
Wow. Yeah, 77 is a good score. That's nothing to sneeze at for sure. Cindy, go ahead.
Well, that was back in the day, Ted, when I was playing 6 times a week.
What
Cindy?
was your major in college?
So I finished up my undergrad at Grand Valley State University in Allendale, Michigan, just outside Grand Rapids, and my major there was journalism. I originally had wanted to do print journalism and go write for a newspaper, but then I kind of realized where that industry was headed and switched to the TV side of things. Realized I didn't have enough TV experience when I was finishing up at Grand Valley, so I ended up going to the University of Oklahoma to get my master's degree in strategic communication, which encompasses public relations and marketing and advertising and as well as journalism and communications research. So kind of got a taste of everything in the communications spectrum during my college days, you could say.
Well, that's good. Now, how long have you been with the LPGA?
So I started at the LPGA in October of last year. So Stage 2 was my first tournament I worked on full time. So
throwing you right in.
Yeah, that's throwing me right in, and every stop out here this year is new to me, and I'm learning along the way. But I mean, it's great. We have 21 events, 16 different states, traveling. I've been able on off weeks. I've been able to visit New York City for the first time, and up in Green Bay for the LPGA tournament this week. So, yeah, it sends me all kinds of places that either I haven't been or I like to visit again, or get to see the country, obviously, with some drives and see it from the skies as well. So it's a pretty good gig.
That's a great thing. Well, you do a great job with us. I got news for you. Not everybody cares. So we're thrilled.
Well, good. That
yeah,
is a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we enjoy having the players come on. It's interesting each week because they are so uniquely different. Obviously, in personalities and that, you get some obviously that are a little shyer than others. Then you get some that just come out full force and just want to are excited and just in their personality alone. So it's very interesting to see the different dynamics. Zach, I want to ask you a question about social media. One of the things I was going to ask Muni, of course, was about her, as an example, her Instagram page has 114,000 followers.
It actually
which
has
is
increased
incredible.
quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. That was just going from the notes that you.
Yeah, it's actually at 144,000.
Holy
wow.
cow.
Yeah.
So let me ask you why. Why does she have more than most? What does she do that's different, better? Can you tell us?
Well, there's two answers. I'll give you the politically correct answer. She's a young female from a country that is, I would say, in the technology world and in the social media age is highly advanced. One thing I've noticed since obviously I've had social media for a while, but even just noticing it since I started with the LPGA in October is there's a large presence in the European countries, and I think there's a larger demographic that cares about maybe golf from a local perspective. Like you get an LET, a Ladies European Tour account, for example, and they have a huge following, and I think that shows what the European flavor for golf is, and their nature of wanting the information. They have for example, their Twitter account has a little over 37,000 followers. So, and then you get someone like Muni who has a following like she does, and I've talked to some of her camp before, and some of the players that are friends with her, and if you ask them, they'll say that her presence in China, she's more famous than Shen Feng. And Shen Feng, who has a pretty good track record on the LPGA Tour. So I think maybe that puts a little pressure on her, but I don't, as a 19-year-old in the digital age, I don't think that gets to her head too much. I think it's more fun for them than anything, and I don't think it necessarily makes them think about it as much as we think it does.
It's interesting because. Go ahead, Cindy.
Does she have like a really extroverted personality?
She's extremely nice and outgoing. Yes. Yeah. 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 I mean, there's nothing about her that if you met her and talked with her, there's nothing that you wouldn't like about it. I mean, she's a likable person. She's easy to be around, easy to talk with, and I think she smiles more than any human being on the planet. But yeah, there's nothing that would ever turn you away from a good conversation with her.
Cool.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder. Again, obviously it's a generational thing. A lot of the younger generation are very big into social media, but what do you think? I mean, obviously she's not the only tour player that has social media accounts, because I know some of the others that have been on have mentioned about, after their win, they'll post something up on social media. Is this primarily for them a way not only to stay in touch with those that support them, but also a way of communicating? Because many of them, like you said, coming from China, Sweden and Australia, and that they're oftentimes far away from family and home. So this is kind of a way for them to kind of communicate, hey, what's happening, over here in the United States when they're playing on tour. Is that, I think, another reason as well that a lot of them, keep in contact like that through social media?
Oh yeah. They can, away from family, they can post pictures updating what's going on. Obviously, I'm sure they're still connected with their family off social media, but social media gives that outlet and platform to where during a round or after a round, when they're just finishing up, family members can kind of keep an eye on how they did or what's going on. So yeah, it's a good platform for connecting still with family and that, but also I think there's a large just base of, as the Symmetric Tour continues to grow, there's still those fans that are chomping at the bit for more involvement in behind the scenes of what goes on in their lives, and that's kind of one thing that I've loved to incorporate since I started is, like this week, for instance, if you follow our Instagram page at Road to LPGA, you'll get 7 different players every day doing a takeover. So they're going to take over the account, and they'll take you through a day in their life and what they do, whether it's from practicing to traveling to, a lot of them like to eat different good foods. So whatever it may be, you'll see a different taste of someone from a different background, a different culture, that how they prepare for a golf tournament, what they do during their off time, and it takes you in behind the scenes of their life and what they do. And I think it's a way to market themselves, and it's also a way to market the tour as well, to showcase exactly what these girls do and who they are, because without them, the tour is nothing. They're what stirs the drink, and they're what everybody comes out to see, and what we enjoy showcasing on a national and international platform. So social media is a huge thing, and it's never, if anything, it's only going to grow. But because you always hear the people who talk about, oh, this, it can't last forever, but social media is never going to go away. It might change and take different courses, but it's always going to find a way to connect people and have people staring down at their phones.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I see that. Let me just ask you one other quick question, and then Cindy, I'll let you have it again. The idea of travel for some of these young ladies, I'm sure, is very difficult, especially because they're coming from overseas. They're not familiar with the landscape over here. Does the tour have a facility in place to help them with travel and getting from place to place, or are they pretty much sort of left on their own?
Yeah, they're that's a learning curve for them, and I think that's kind of a good thing as well, because it allows them to, in a sense, grow up in a positive way. You know what I mean? Not necessarily like you need to grow up, but they're growing up in a sense that
right.
that they're learning what goes into the professional world, and that's something that obviously, like I've talked to Muni last week, and she talks about the difference between amateur and professional life, and she has her family travel with her extensively, but it's still a completely different ball game than traveling from an amateur career standpoint, and I think that's unique about. I mean, the LPGA, obviously, girls travel there as well, and they're on their own with that, but it's a unique way to kind of show them the ropes, and it makes it a little tougher too, obviously, because you're not only worrying about golf, you're worrying about traveling and where you're staying, but I think the tour does do a really excellent job at each stop that we have with host housing. We have a host housing volunteer that at every stop on the way gets a huge collection of local families at the tournament stop to host a player or two, and girls take large advantage of that. A lot of times, a few, 1, 2, or 3, or a couple or a few will stay together at a single house, and that definitely is something that is the tour has done really well with is that aspect, and that makes it a little easier. But as far as traveling, driving, or flying, most girls drive, and with the way our schedule is set up, it's region to region, so it allows them to drive that way from stop to stop, and it's not too difficult once you map it out. It can be challenging sometimes, but I'll tell you what, it goes back to kind of what I said earlier with how unique the travel is to see the countryside and to see the different stops along the way, but also everything in between that you don't necessarily get to see pictures of and people don't share is the stops that you make along the highway or between visits and between tournaments.
Very cool. Cindy, any final thoughts or questions that you have for Zach before we move on?
Oh, I'm good. I appreciate you joining us. This was great.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Well, Zach, thank you, Zach, for filling in. We appreciate that, and we know you've got. So, what's coming up this week? What's the next event?
So this week we're off, and then next week we have the second annual Donald Ross Classic at French Lick Resort. That's the first of 3 tournaments for us, and then we after French Lick we go to Rochester, New York, then Albany, New York, and then we're back to a week off. It'll be a good 3-week stretch for July, kind of 3 quick tournaments, and then we have a huge stretch at the end, which I'm sure we'll talk about closer to the middle of August. But that's what we got coming up in July.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Well, Zach, thank you very much again for joining us this morning. We appreciate the update, and again, thank you for filling in. And we'll try and maybe get Muni on next week if possible, and talk about her win a little bit more. But have a great week off, and we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ted. Thanks, Cindy. Have a good week.
You too.
All right, that was Symetra Tours Media and Public Relations official Zach Sapanik, as I said, filling in this morning for Muni He, winner of the inaugural Prasco Charity Championship at TPC Rivers Bend this past weekend. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to join us this morning, so Zach very graciously filled in. Very interesting, some of the things he was saying about social media and about travel as well. And obviously, of course, the race for the Volvic card is something that they're all in addition to winning tournaments, of course, they're all aspiring to get that coveted LPGA card for next season. So they're all in a race to do that and playing their best golf out there. And boy, I'll tell you, some of the stats that he read off earlier about Muni is just incredible. The greens and regulation and fairways and so forth. Quite an impressive player, Cindy.
Absolutely. Holy cow.
We won't even go into the driving distance. I mean, that's just incredible. I mean, just unbelievable. All right, so Cindy, we've got another great guest coming on the second half here. Of course, Tina Toombs. She's the founder and president of Tina Toombs Golf at Arizona's Biltmore Golf Club. And I didn't know this until I read through some of the information, but she was born in Montreal, Quebec, so she's a fellow Canadian to a family of avid golfers. And with a born athleticism, it was natural for her to take up the game of golf, and she's called Arizona her home since 1980, where one can find her perfecting her golf swing on the course at any moment. And she considers her two daughters, Sarah and Heidi, the pride. And she also gets much of her inspiration from her spouse, Larry Fisher, also another longtime resident of Arizona, and just a whole myriad list of accolades that she has accomplished in her career. So let's bring her out, and we'll talk with Tina Toombs this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
We're great. Thanks for getting up early for us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
It
is a little early.
All right. Yeah, it is. Cindy, you go ahead and start things off, and then I'll jump in.
So tell us, I know most of the answers to these questions, but our listeners would love to hear them. You were a really good player on the LPGA Tour, and you have two beautiful daughters, and when you quit playing, how long before you quit playing did you decide that you wanted to become a great teacher that you are? And what spurred that decision?
Well, actually, I was still playing while I was teaching. I started teaching in '99, and a gal on tour, her name is Margaret. A good friend of mine. I just went blank on her last name. It's early here. But anyway, a good friend of mine on tour said to me, Tina, why don't you start teaching? Because, of course, I raised the girls for a long time by myself, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And she said, Tina, you need to teach. And I said, no, I am not teaching. Because, as a player, sometimes you think you don't want to teach. And so I started teaching, and I was actually coaching. I coached two teams here in Phoenix. And one was a college team, and I started two high school teams at the same time. And so for about 3 years I was coaching and then teaching at the same time. And then I just kind of moved my way just into teaching. And then in 2002 I retired from playing completely. So that's really how I got into teaching. And I fell in love working with the young girls. And at the time I was going through a lot of personal stuff. And I think the teaching aspect kept me I was happy doing it, and I felt really good being around the young girls, and I think it saved me, really. It made me feel good. So it was part of that transition that kept me teaching, that why I stayed with it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty neat. And then I started. I was hired by the Biltmore in 2003, and everything just grew from there. So I've been at the Biltmore for 15 years.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing.
Tell us,
cool.
because you really tried to. Some people quit playing and they just start teaching and they don't improve themselves. And you are one who believes that you need to be a lifelong learner. So tell us why and how you've gotten so good at what you do.
Well, thank you, Cindy. I think you're sweet. Well, for me, it's, every day we get different students and we get different people in front of us. And for me, I learn so much from my students as well. I mean, every day I'm learning from them. And I always feel like when I'm challenged by a student and I don't have the answer, I want to go find out what that is, what the answer is. And the other thing is, the more knowledge that I have, the more prepared I am for my students or for anybody that will come to me for a session, whether it be mental practice or on-course session or short game putting, whatever it is. I want to be totally prepared. And I just love to learn, regardless of if it's in golf or flowers or anything that I can do. I love to learn. So it's part of my makeup, I guess. But golf in general, the teaching, it just intrigued me. It really has. And I think the mental aspect of the personality and the psychology of it has been really intriguing for me. So how to transfer the skill of golf to, people at different skill levels, and then teaching them how to play golf and enjoy it and fall in love with it has been my passion. It's what I love about it the most.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Ted?
Very cool. Well, Tina, this is Ted, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Ted.
I want to ask you, hi, how are you? I want to ask you, Tina, because I see that you graduated from Arizona State University with a BS degree in physical education and minored in anatomy and physiology. So obviously, the body is something that's important, especially for today's tour player. We see a big difference, compared to 20, 30 years ago. Not to say that the ladies weren't in great shape, but the physical education part wasn't really a priority. It was more about the golf swing and that. So what are some of the differences that you see with today's tour players, especially the young ladies that you might be working with, and their dedication to making sure that they're in great physical shape to be able to battle out there in the golf course?
I think what they're doing, they're cross-training today. They're doing a lot more impact and cross-training versus just weightlifting. The cross-training, that they're doing in the gyms and the trainers, the TPI fitness has I think, taken them to another level. And the way the TPI has trained the athlete to benefit each individual where they need to be trained so that they're stronger, more fit, and faster. I think that's what we're seeing with women and men. The young girls today, I don't think they look totally like they're built up and they have a ton of muscle, but they're dynamic and those muscles are working fast and they're strong. And that's what I really love about it, is they're just not like bulky. They're just fast. They're fast and flexible and strong and fit. And that's what we're seeing today, instead of, athletes just getting bulked up, where 20 and 30 years ago we were in the gym and weight training and getting strong, but we weren't fast. Our motion wasn't fast. We were getting tight instead of strong. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
That's how I
the reason why yeah, the reason why I asked that is, you look back over the history of, say, the LPGA, and, you see powerhouses like Laura Davies, who is obviously a larger woman and was able to generate a lot of club head speed and just belted a mile. And then you see somebody like the young lady we were talking about earlier that was going to join us this morning, Muni, who just won this past weekend Symetra event, who's really not a very tall player, but obviously very physically fit. And she's carrying it 250 yards. So she's able to, even being a short young lady from China, is able to belt it a mile out there on the golf course. So do you equate that with, again, not so much the bulking up and things like that, but just the speed that they're able to generate with their physical education that they're getting today in the CrossFit and all these other options?
Well, yeah, I think that, and I think that also they're using great fitness, but they're also starting to use the ground reaction forces, which we never really thought about when I was playing the tour. I used the ground, but I didn't use it like I train people to use the ground now. The other thing is the equipment right now is so much better.
Sure.
But these young players and the tour players, they're using the ground phenomenally, and they're using it in the sequence of the golf swing that is at the performance and the timing of that now is everything is delivered to the golf ball at the right time for maximum power and release of the club head to get the ball to go the furthest. And they're using, force plates, and they're using body track, and they're using pressure boards and stuff like that. They're on machines all the time to tell them exactly when they are on their game and when they're off their game. So I think that the launch monitors and everything that they're training with, the training tools that they're using, they're just getting feedback so fast that now that they're, they know when their game is on and when it's not, and what they're doing with fitness, if it's right or wrong, where we didn't have that kind of feedback 20 and 30 years ago.
Right. It's just obviously more education. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. More education about
about what they're training with. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Right. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no. I was going to say, I use Flight Scope and the Foresight Quad, and also some some force plates, and it's amazing the feedback that I get just teaching with them, and then my students get. When they're trying something different to get more power. I mean, we're finding out that if you're using the left foot at different times in the golf swing, how much more yardage you're getting in club head speed. Just with, just practicing. So at the top level, these athletes are training better, doing, cross training, doing it at 4 to 5 times a week, and then hitting thousands of balls, playing 6 rounds a week. I mean, they're strong. They're strong and they're fast. So
right.
I think
you
that's
mentioned
the biggest reason.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier you brought up sort of the mental side of the game. That's obviously become more and more important as well. I mean, it's always been there, but I think they're more conscious about how important it is to keep it together. I mean, it's great to have the physical game out there in the golf course, but if you mentally can't keep everything sort of focused on what you need to at the time, you can very quickly derail around. So is that something that you really emphasize in your teaching as well, as in addition to obviously good fundamentals and good skills and doing some different tips and drills? Do you focus on the mental side of that and actually how to play and how to keep things together out in the golf course?
Yeah, because I do, because especially at different levels, I think that I do a lot with Vision 54, and they're right there in Phoenix, so I do a lot with them. But I think that as you're training, if your mental game isn't as good as your physical, then you're not going to be as good as you can. Your potential's not going to reach. You're not going to reach your potential. But even the beginner player, I think, needs to know how to mentally think through the game at their level, as the tour player is thinking through theirs. And the tour player that plays the best week in and week out has the best mental game, because they all have great technique. They all play their game to the best that they can play it. And that was my big weakness playing, and is that I wasn't, it's the emotions that you have to learn how to handle. playing the game more than the technique. I think
Yeah,
the technique
you're
stays,
exactly
it's the
right.
emotions.
And
sorry.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, that's okay. I was just going to say you're exactly right in that. And as I said, that can very quickly derail. Cindy, do you have some more questions for Tina?
Let me ask you how you translate or transfer all the data, the measuring of the flight scope and the force plates and the body track, and how do you help them become more right-brained when they play, especially if they happen to be a very left-brained person?
Mhm. I'm really careful how I use the data. For instance, when I use the foresight, for instance, and I'm training someone to hit a low shot, let's say a low pitch shot, I just use the launch angles, and I teach them difference in numbers. So I'm never taking, and launch angle just tells you high and low. So if someone's listening that doesn't understand that, the launch angle is the height of the ball coming off the face and what the face is doing at impact. And so somebody who doesn't understand that and is trying to hit the ball high or low with a sandwich, for instance, I'll teach them how to use that with those training aids. And then when they go play, they get the feel. So I'm using the numbers and feel at the same time. And then I'll take the machines away and then ask them to repeat it, and then we'll go through the routine, because I never take some people will take a student, and then mirror image a tour player and say, this is what you have to look like. I don't believe that a student looks like a tour player and a tour player looks like another student. Everybody's swing is different. I'm very much, my background is that everybody swings different, everybody's built different. I don't think any two swings look alike, and so I trained that way as well. And so that's how I use my machines. So when they're out there playing, I take it to a feel versus even if they don't have feel, I try and create as much feel as I can, because I think there's always feel in a student and always feel in people. They just don't know they have it. So if somebody says I can't feel my feet, I tell them to take their shoes off and go barefoot. Close your eyes and go barefoot, because it's there. They just have never been able to use it. They've never sensed it. So that's how I kind of train to go into the golf course, so that they can get a sense of what it feels like. So I use numbers, and then I go into a feel so that they can change from one to the other. And I'll always go into a routine, take the machines away and go into a routine and ask them to perform on the range, and then we'll go out on the golf course and do it. But I have full access to golf course. I can take my students out there anytime.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Cindy, go ahead.
Do you teach a lot of kids? Who are the people that you teach the most?
I actually have a variety. I have students that are in their 90s. I have a couple men that are 96 and 94, and then I have 4-year-olds. I do junior clinics every Sunday, so I have 3 clinics. I call, they're Super Sundays for my juniors, and I'm a U.S. Kids instructor, so I do a lot of juniors and women. So I have a variety. I would say my bulk of my students are women and juniors, and I have a lot of men as well, but I think the majority are women and students. And as I've become, as I'm teaching more and more, and I'm doing more for women's golf and juniors, because I'm promoting that segment of the game, I'm getting more and more junior golfers and women golfers. So I would say women and juniors.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I love it.
Very
I'm
good.
having a blast.
Well, and that's the key, really. Tina, is when you enjoy what you're doing, it doesn't really feel like a job. day in, day out. And that's the beauty of one of the things that I like about the golf industry as well. Is something that I'm very passionate about, and that's why I enjoy being a part of it as well as I know Cindy does. Tina, I just have a final question for you, and then we'll wrap up. Obviously, we see a lot of growth in the game, particularly from young girls, probably ranging from, I would say, on average, from about 13 years and up. What do you see as the driving force to that? Why are you seeing a lot of young girls now suddenly taking an interest in coming out and learning to play the game? And what do we do in order to keep them? Because obviously not all of them are going to make it out on the Symetra or LPGA tours. But what do we do to keep them interested, well into their later lives? What do we need to do as an industry to keep them interested? Because this is something that's fairly a new phenomenon, if you will, for a lot of that's the biggest demographic coming into golf right now, are young girls. So how do we keep them here?
Well, it's funny that you asked that, because we were just talking about that at our meetings last week, and I think we need to find, more, events in our in our cities, in our associations, for young women that are transitioning from high school to college and out of college into business, that can network and play golf with their peers. A lot of the young girls that come to me with their parents, all their parents want them to play on tour, and not all of them, of course, are going to make it. And so I always, explain that, hey, it's a lifetime sport, and if we get them to play golf, they're always going to be able to use it in business. They're always going to be able to use it to network and make friends and stuff. So that's, I think, the area that we need to focus on to get them to be able to keep playing golf. I have a lot of women that come to me now and say, hey, I want to learn. I have 3 friends that want to learn. They're all around 45 to 55 and 60 years old, and they're just learning to play golf. So I love to see the young girls wanting to learn to play and getting out here and playing golf. And to keep them, that's, I think, what we have to do, is get them engaged in playing in tournaments, fun tournaments in their state or associations or local areas, so that they can meet more people and get out and play.
Yeah, because you're right. That does seem to be a bit of an issue right now, because, when you get, a young girl, like I say, 12, 13 years old that gets in, but maybe isn't good enough to make it a little bit later on, either onto a high school golf team or even a collegiate golf team, there's sort of a transition period of, okay, what do I do now? Where do I go? I'm not maybe necessarily good enough to make it on a professional level or even at a collegiate level, but there's really nothing out here. I enjoy getting out playing golf, but, I don't feel like I'm being competitively challenged. So
right.
I agree with you. I think we need to find something, and you'll know this, formerly being from Montreal, of course, a big hockey area. We had sort of like what we'd call a house league in hockey. So for those that maybe weren't going to make it to the NHL, we had rural or house leagues available in hockey. Do they maybe kind of need something like that in golf as well, in a state-wide area, that type of thing, so that, it's not necessarily top professional, but it's something to keep them competitive and playing within their communities?
Right. Well, I think we need that, but, the other side to it is we also have the TNCP, where they could get involved and go through our education programs and get into teaching and be on that business side of it, and they'll be able to play and compete in our teaching tournaments. We have lots of tournaments that we have locally all over the country, and then our national tournaments and pro-ams and stuff. So there's that avenue as well that they can go into, which we are also campaigning on, which I think that is something that we haven't done as well as we can do to promote them to go in that direction. So I think there's a lot of avenues in state and nationally that we can be promoting them to do. Yeah, definitely.
Well said. Perfect. Cindy, any final thoughts or questions that you have?
I'm good. I just want to thank Tina for joining us today and for doing everything that you do. You are a great leader in this game, and I'm honored to call you my bud.
Me too, Cindy. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on this morning. I really, really enjoyed it, and I set my alarm nice and early.
Well, you were perfect.
Make sure you drink
Tina.
a lot of water. Great. Well, thank you
well
very
said.
much for having me. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank
Very,
you. Love you.
very quickly, Tina, before you go, for those that maybe want to reach out to you that are in Arizona or coming to Arizona, how can they reach out to you? Where can they go to learn more about Tina Toombs Golf?
I have a website, and my website is TinaToombs.com, and my golf school's at the Arizona Biltmore Golf Resort. So if they want to get in touch with me, they can go onto my website, and all my contact information is there. And they can email me there or call me. My phone number's on my website as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you again on behalf of Cindy and I. Thank you, Tina, for joining us this morning. We appreciate it and enjoy the conversation. And go out and have some fun today.
Okay, thank you. You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right,
Stay cool. Bye.
All right, that was our very special guest, Tina Toombs, president and founder of Tina Toombs Golf. You can find her website at tinatombsgolf.com and all of her contact information there. And, of course, you can also reach out to her at the Arizona Biltmore Golf Resort in, of course, Arizona. Also, again, thanks to Zach Sapanik for filling in this morning, the Symetra Tours media and public relations official. Thanks again, Zach, for joining us. And thank you, the listeners, for faithfully tuning in each and every week. We appreciate your support, and we will be back next week with some more great guests here on the show. So thanks for joining us. Have a great week, everybody, and God bless. Thanks, Cindy.
Thanks, Dad. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.